Hello and welcome to Cambridge Deaf Club. We're here at Fincham House with a special interview today with the British Deaf Association Chief Executive, Rebecca. My name is Andrew Palmer and I work here at Cambridgeshire Deaf Association. In fact, in this very building, I grew up here. I played around at Deaf Club. I was a very naughty boy, obviously. But obviously now times have changed. We use the hall for filming and different things. So it's wonderful to still be here and to keep it going strong. So today's topic is a really interesting one, and it's going to be a bit deep. Firstly, we'll be talking about the BSL conference next month. But interestingly, at the BSL conference, there'll be lots of different topics talked about. So Rebecca's going to explain more about what's on, why it's on, and who the guests are, as well as their background knowledge and the important issues over the last year that will be discussed, and the big changes coming up. So we need you all to go and share your views. So I have to say, I'm a bit nervous today. First time presenting in BSL, so please be kind to me. But we can have Facebook comments, so if you'd like to ask any questions, write any comments on Facebook, we can see and we can bring that up. Okay, so Rebecca, thank you so much for coming today. Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. You're right, it's such an important topic. And like you said, you grew up here at Deaf Club. That's where your heritage started. But there was lots of people before that in previous generations. And it will become really relevant to the conference, which I'll explain about later. In fact, CDA's 100-year birthday is coming up soon in 2027. So at the moment, we're just working out how to celebrate the history. And the name here, Fincham House, has been named after a woman, Linda Fincham. And she was the first deaf trustee here at CDA. And so before that, it was run by hearing people, obviously lovely people, through the church and the missioners. But Linda was the very first deaf chair of the trustees. Oh, how amazing. Right, now to focus on you. So, talking about the BSL conference. First obvious question. It's going to be a big conference. So why? Why so big? Really, that's a great question. It's similar, as you were explaining. So next month is BDA's 155th anniversary. But also, last year, we had a conference in Manchester, and so many things have come up from that and have changed since that in the last year. So we want to share information with the deaf community, and we don't want to take away the work that has been done in the community, and there's lots to cover. So, brilliant. Firstly, I think we're going to talk about the new report, and it's really important, isn't it, to talk about the economy and the economics of BSL. So from that report, can you explain what it is? Yes, so from last year in Manchester, we launched the report, and we were talking about the early impact report. And it's really to explain that the government should be giving free BSL classes to any children who are deaf and their families. Currently, families are actually having to pay to learn BSL when their child is deaf, and that's something that we feel really strongly against. So it's not a standardised approach across the UK either. So we're hoping that they can come up with a framework, whether it's hearing aids or cochlear implants, are all free, obviously given, but the language, the BSL teaching isn't. So that's what we're campaigning for the government to change, to deliver sign language to deaf children and their families for free. Because they will be spending a lot of money delivering this courses. However, what we want to show them is their return on the investment. They need to know if they're spending the money, are they getting the investment back? So we need to show them that there is a benefit to this, because the government wanted evidence. So our BSL BDA board approved for the research to be done with some economic specialists, and they're very, very well respected. by both parties in the government, Labour and Conservatives. So they do a lot of economics research, which is their specialist, and they've got a great reputation for that. Okay, so that's really important, isn't it? So the person who was commissioned the research, they are independent, right? So they're not from Labour or Conservatives. Absolutely. They are independent. So they're independent from the deaf community as well. And the government can often see, if they're not independent, they'll sway towards either the blue party or the red party. But when they're independent specialists, they'll accept the research from them. So the report is going to be really, really exciting. We are launching it at the conference, and I've had a little look already. So, for example, every £1 that the government spends, they are actually getting back more than what they've spent, which is really, really great. But you're not going to tell me how much? No, you've got to hold it till the conference. Oh, so maybe in the comments you can all have a guess. What is the £1 worth? What's their return on that investment? Have a comment on Facebook and let us know. She's not telling us now. We'll have to find out at the conference. So it's really useful, isn't it? Can it be used for local deaf organisations? Yeah, absolutely. So when the report is actually launched, it can be used by national organisations, local organisations in any region, because it's really important to understand how this report will impact the work that you're all doing. So it might be worth using with your local council, your governments, the areas, the regions, and influencing the policy that's created from it. Because it's so important to make sure that this BSL language is not stopped, and we need the evidence to do that. And that's really interesting. So I wonder, in the past, Welsh language has been recognised. So now when you drive to Wales, there's signposts in both language. So you have English and Welsh. And I wonder whether they have had to show reports and the return on the investment. So if anyone knows out there, feel free to let us know in the comments. So talking about the economics is really, really important, but it's also about how deaf people feel, isn't it? And the culture and the identity of deaf people. Which do you feel is more important, or the culture or the economics? Really, they're not comparable. The reason we needed the evidence is just for the government to create the national framework in BSL. But at the same time, we've been talking about campaigning for access. But of course, in our community and our culture, we don't have that access. We have the heritage and the community. And like you said, you've been coming to Cambridgeshire Deaf Club since you were small. You've grown up here. And there have been generations before you that have done the same, which is equally important. So the Department of Media, Culture and Sport, the DCMS, got in touch with us last year. And they have just joined UNESCO, the World Heritage Organisation. And it's so important. So, for example, if you have an important building, it gets marked as a heritage, and they can also do that with languages. So they can mark them as heritage and it culturally important. And so it's really interesting that actually BSL has that culture, it has that identity. And so we could get on the heritage registry. So I feel it's not about which one's more important. Both heritage and economics are both equally important. Amazing. So hold on with that World Heritage before we jump forward. I want to say a big thank you to Bethany Murray, who said she's got an estimation that it's about £3 return, or £3.60 return. Oh, sorry, Bethany, it's not quite as high. But if there's any more guesses, keep them coming in. So, talking about the World Heritage, can you explain a little bit more about UNESCO and what they do? So, we all know amazing places like the pyramids, for example, and physical buildings that we can see and touch that have been marked as sort of on the heritage register. But when I spoke to DCMS and they started explaining it to me, I realised that actually it's much more than that. And they started asking me about deaf culture and what it was. And I thought, goodness, that's just become clear. It's about having the evidence that the UK government have to safeguard our language. And that is of utmost importance to all of us. They look after buildings, they look after the pyramids and visitor centres, for example, but it is the same as languages. Wow. So you mean BSL would be treated at the same respect as like the pyramids in Egypt, for example? Or the Taj Mahal, they would be treated the same. Is that right? Yes. So for me, it was so eye-opening. It was like, that's it. It was so significant. And so I went to an event at Nottingham Trent University, and they were talking about ICH and the cultural heritage and explaining it more. And there were massive people around the board, so many people. But I was the only deaf person there, but we were talking about UK culture. And there were different presenters. And one person who was presenting was talking about Austrian Sign Language. And they were successful at logging their Austrian Sign Language on the Heritage Register in 2013. And so, obviously, as you know, BDA are members of the European Union of the Deaf. And so they were representing Austria. And obviously I went to represent England. So I went to approach this lady, and she's actually going to come to our conference and present. So her name is Harleen Jama, and she'll be helping us to put the language on the register, which is so exciting. So it's Austrian Sign Language. So they have better rights in the deaf community in Austria, is that correct? I think it's really interesting. So I think when we're talking about access, they actually are talking about rights. So that's our living heritage. It's not a right anymore. You have to live with heritage. Because our living heritage is still existing. We have evidence here in the UK of our heritage. Back 1976, it was the first wedding in sign language. Sorry. Hang on. Just to clarify, was that 1576, was it? Sorry. Yes? Yeah. So nearly 400 years ago, that's when the first wedding in sign language. Wow, nearly 500. Yeah, 400 or 500 years ago. But wow, that's how amazing it is. How do you know that? Were there photographs or? Yes, no, there was evidence to show the wedding because of the details in the records. And it was so interesting, but that's why it's important to preserve it. That is our living heritage. Some families have 9 generations of deafness. So that language and that culture has been passed down through generations. Not from me, but my family's hearing. But I look at deaf families and their fluency in their sign language, and I think that's it. The deaf community that have grown up in hearing families needs to be aware of the culture behind them so that they can feel part of it. Because it might be that they were quite isolated growing up and they've been the only one in mainstream school, but actually they have a rich, thriving community around them that they need to join. And I'm so passionate about it. So, for example, the elements of the deaf culture, is it BSL humour? Is it culture? Is it poetry? But that's it. There are things like sign names, for example, so unique to the deaf community. It's like a nickname in hearing in English, but we have sign names and we give them to hearing people as well. And that's a really unique aspect of the culture. Deaf sports, for example, it's a different way of refereeing, obviously not with a whistle, but with a visual gesture. And there's so many elements. Deaf storytelling and deaf humour, it's very unique. There are lots of comments coming in. £1.65 return on the investment from Emma. It's a good guess, but I don't know. Not getting much from her facial expression. So keep them coming. One person has said they agree buildings have heritage, for example. And like Margate, for example. Places that of deaf significance also need safeguarding. Absolutely. I mean, there's so many. And if we are successful in getting BSL onto the cultural register, it's going to be so useful. And we are looking to collect more evidence from the deaf community. And we'll talk about sign names, various different elements, with so many aspects of it that we are looking to provide to the government before November. We've got plenty of time. So we'll be organising different discussions, boards and panels, because it's so important that we have the right evidence to show. And I'm so excited about that. So how wonderful. If you want to be a part of the heritage, providing all the evidence to UNESCO and submitting it, you have to be there. Your views matter. It could be so important, and it could be bringing a different viewpoint that may really, really be significant. You never know. What happens if you're not there? Exactly. So thank you so much, Rebecca. So a little bit of a different topic that's also very important to the audience and all those watching. Please do send in your comments. SWORD, S-O-R-D, and decal. What's that important? So at the BDA, we're trying to campaign to influence government policy and to try and reduce the oppression about our language. And so for that, we need research and evidence. So we've been working with 11 different universities around the UK, and we've been researching sign language with experts. One we work with is SWORD and UCL London and decal. So we're all working together to try and review the evidence over the last year from the paper. So the government are trying to work out their return on the investment if they fund free sign language classes. And they're also looking for what they need to do next. And for that, they need a lot of the research done. And rather than conflict it all, we needed to review it all together. So what I found really, really interesting was there was 3,000 different papers about sign language in early years, about cochlear implants, about language acquisition. So SWORD and UCL are gathering all the evidence to say, actually, this would be the best outcome for the deaf community. So it's a really, really exciting project. So I know last year's topic was about early years and the prevention. It was a deep discussion around the conference, and it's still important today, right? So lots of people have been contributing to that and providing different perspectives. So it's very important for you in the audience, if you have a passion about deaf children, deaf people in their early years, their language, come along to the conference, because it's really important to share your views and to pick up what's going on out there. And the research is so important. So like you say, there were 3,000 different papers, Andy, not 30, 3,000. 3,000 different papers. Okay. So the government need to read all of those and collect them all. They must be using ChatGPT, I'm sure of it. Impossible to read through all 3,000. So once they've collated all of that, they make recommendations based on those papers. Yes, that's it. So they will be recommending what is going to be best for deaf children going forward. So really, like 135 years ago, 35 years ago even, sign language wasn't used in school. Obviously then, since the BSL Act, things have changed. And now I feel like we won't give up until the government understand that sign language and any aids for hearing are so important, because the mental health effects of deaf people are still really high. There are still significant barriers in place. And so we need to start bilingually supporting children and campaigning for that. Okay, so don't tell us what's coming out in the report just yet. So you'll know if you go, is that right? So we've got a question from Stuart. Thank you, Stuart, for your question. I'd like to ask you, Rebecca. Is it going to be relevant for an independent deaf youth worker to come along to the conference? Yes. Anybody who works for early years, anybody who works in the deaf community, who you might want to use any of the information in the report to support you with these children, because sometimes it does feel like, how can we have effective work? But we've got the evidence, we've got the power here, so we'd love to empower other people to be able to campaign for deaf children's future. Absolutely. So yes, book it now, Stuart. Bethany's also commented she wants the framework to encourage deaf people into work and volunteering as well in the deaf community, as well as in other jobs. Her son and her brother are all very, very interested in becoming teachers of the deaf or interpreting roles. So Bethany paid for level 1. And she's saying there is definitely potential for economic development through teaching. Absolutely. We have done so much work with the government, and in the last year, there have been a lot of talk about the economics, but also about AI. And we're trying to make the influence towards the government, because we do believe that, for example, with the GCSE, it's not a modern foreign language. It's our language. It's our cultural language of the deaf community. And we have that lived heritage. It's not just like French or Spanish where you have to go abroad to find it. So we've been talking to the government about funding the workforce as well, because we're excited about the future. We need more teachers of the deaf, or we need deaf people to become teachers. We need investment for that to happen. Oh, you've brought it up about the BSL GCSEs. And of course this will be brought up at the conference, I'm sure. What's the latest news on that? How long do you have? Honestly, I'll be here all day. The most important thing is about Ofqual. So they have been in discussions, and I've just had an update last night about how to monitor and audit the BSL GCSE exams. So they needed some feedback about how to improve the system. So by the end of this month, they want some information about how to best record the exam and actually assess it. So we currently have the curriculum, but we're waiting for the exam specification. So it's so excited to be launched, hopefully soon. Interestingly, there's another comment here. There is a big problem that there aren't enough deaf teachers. We need more deaf teachers. So if you feel that you want the GCSE and BSL, do you feel there are enough? So interestingly, from the research again, they do say there are enough. But obviously with the workforce development, we have another key speaker actually coming along who's going to be doing some talks about deaf young people and their future. And thinking forwards into 2040, 2050, what will this mean for young deaf people? What are they looking to expect in their future? So it's so important to get your young deaf people's views, safeguard the language, and hopefully think forward into 2050. What is it going to be like? Oh, that is so wonderful to think so far into the future. It's good to know. Okay. So just a quick summary so far. We're not even halfway yet. So, economics. Early years. And now moving on to a little bit more of a controversial topic. I'm going to talk about genetics. So remember last year, BDA were here at Cambridge University, and there was a big discussion about genetics. And I know there was a lot of important and interesting information that was spoken about, which we'll talk about later. So is genetics one of the topics in the conference programme? Can you let us know what to expect? Yes, it sounds like a bit of a pivot, but it is actually really relevant. And it's interesting. So like I told you about the DCMS being really interested about learning about culture and protecting our language and safeguarding our deaf identity and our heritage, there's another aspect of it. So thinking about the physical health. So in the UK, we have a list of serious illnesses and stem cell treatments or genetics that could be effective. And they're called serious illnesses. And interestingly, deafness is actually on there. So I'm like, wow, how conflicting is this evidence? Because we've got the Department of Media, Culture and Sport thinking about our heritage and the culture and the richness of it. And at the same time, we've got this physical health issue where they're putting deafness on a serious illness list. So you'll remember last year, the news that went out about a deaf girl who had treatment and became hearing. And there was a lot of mixed feelings in the deaf community because we felt like people were trying to eradicate our deafness. And it was, a big question mark about our future. We're creating the BSL GCSE. Who for? If we're not safeguarding the deaf community. So it's a really interesting question, but at the same time, there's hearing people's perspective to say, well, if we could do this, we would be cruel not to do it, to treat deafness. So it's so conflicting to think about what is our position? What are your views in the audience? And it's a really difficult question to answer. So that's partly why we went to the Cambridge University and we got some more information about what the impact is. Wow. So why do you feel we've got this sort of level of recognition, the heritage, and then on the other side, we have health that still seems the same issue that we've had for many, many years? We have this sort of social medical model. So what is the BDA's role? Are you trying to sort of influence one way or another, or? Yeah, as you said, it is a controversial topic. So we have not outlined our position yet. What we want is to learn from you, from the deaf community out there. We need more in-depth understanding and thoughts, and also about the scientific prospects in the future, because deafness is already on that list and the stem cell treatment is already out there. So what happens if the deaf community is starting to decrease? What would we be doing for that? What is our view? What is our thoughts about that? I feel you spoke quite quickly then, but I think it's really important. So I was there last year with Professor, who told us that at the moment, the genetic treatment is not yet ready to be put out there. Is that correct? So one child has been treated, but she said 10 years, 15 years in the future, this could be through C26 genetic or from Waardenburg syndrome, that those elements or those reasons of deafness could be eradicated. Is that true? Yes, but what we want is, what does the deaf community think about that? We want their thoughts on it. So we need to start talking about it, really. And it's so important for what does that mean for us going forwards? How are we seen? Are we seen as something that needs to be fixed? Or should we be seen as a contributor? We contribute to society. The deaf community contribute for hearing gain, for example. One person said to me, the car mirrors. Who invented car wing mirrors? Who do you think? Ford. It was a deaf person who invented the car wing mirrors. And now all over the world we use them because it was visual. And that was a contribution from a deaf person. Same as a text message. It wasn't invented by a deaf person. However, a hearing person invented it for deaf people. And again, worldwide, all over the world, we use text messages. And the same as live captions. We use this for our access. But now it's become the norm. Everybody's putting captions on everything. And it's really popular. So you can see these contributions from deaf people that are actually benefiting the economy. So if our visual contributions are affecting society, if that's eradicated, who is providing that visual contributions or the visual solutions that are needed? You need deaf people on this earth. So of course people have the choice, don't they, to use the genetic therapy or not. One of the questions I have is if you have hearing parents who might decide they don't want deaf children, so they might offer the treatment to their deaf child, but deaf parents choose, maybe through their genes, that actually they want a deaf person. They might choose that one. What do you think? Well, exactly. That's why Professor Anna Middleton, when she came, she's coming to the conference, and she's going to be talking about that exact thing and answering those important questions, hopefully. That's really, really interesting. Thank you. So again, if you want to join the discussion, come along to the conference. It's really important for the economy, for children and early years, and genetics. So those are 3 big topics just so far. So tell us a little bit about the venue. What's it like? Oh, it's a beautiful place. So it's actually in Leeds because BDA was set up there in 1890. So again, we're going back to our roots. It's right near Leeds station. It's just opposite, or sort of in the station really. And there's a massive ballroom that everybody can fit into. It's up to 500 people. And then we have breakout rooms available as well. So there's 4 breakout rooms. So you can pick which topic you're most interested in discussing and you can join that breakout room. So it might be you're most interested in talking about culture or about economics, but you can choose what suits you. So on the programme, there are so many amazing categories. So if you come for Thursday and Friday, the categories will repeat. So you are actually able to choose 2 of your favourite topics to talk about. Okay, so just to clarify, on Thursday and Friday, it's going to be the same. Yes, there'll be different keynote speakers. So there'll be 4 keynote speakers. So we've invited lots of different people who will be invited on the stage and interviewed on the stage. And I think the deaf community are really, really excited because, as you know, there was a green paper talking about PIP, access to work. There's potential to talk about cuts. And so we're very excited to be able to ask lots of questions. There's the AI department, so we'll be asking lots of questions about that, about how that's going to be developed, and thinking about how it can be developed safely and ethically with deaf people contributing, and thinking about different regional signs, for example, and thinking about the Black deaf community and different intersectionalities that people might have. So the keynote speaker will be thinking about these different aspects of sign language and why it's so important. And so all these different intersectionalities, it's not just white deaf people that we're talking about. There's such a rich community around. And so we're hoping that everybody's going to be there signing and it's going to be amazing. And so we'll be thinking about what we think about our work as well and much, much more. It sounds like such a rich conference. So you're going to be discussing AI. What's the topic? We know AI is going to change the world. Many of us already use it every day. So for the deaf community, what is your view? Do you think it's going to be positive, negative? How it's going to be developed? So we have to be neutral at the BDA. Our role is to make sure that the inventions, the development of AI and the production is safe for the deaf community and responsible. And what we really want to see is more deaf leadership and deaf role models in that production. And, what we don't want is hearing people coming in saying, oh, we've got this great solution for a deaf community, but actually they can't sign and they're not part of the deaf community. So that's really important that it doesn't get damaged in that way. Because sometimes the government do get overexcited and they roll out things. For example, in the BSL Act, talking about government communication, websites have to be accessible. And they see a barrier of, oh, how do we make this translated? How do we make it accessible? And they don't realise that some areas of translation have to be done by a human. So health and education for us are so important. And justice, maybe. So there's different elements that need to be translated with a human touch to it. Brilliant. So if you'd like to contribute your concerns, your views about AI and the future, maybe about AI translations, using it regularly. What about the quality? Do you think it's going to be good enough? What about deaf translators? We'd love to know your views. Pop it in the comment or come along to the conference. So if you have a question, it'd be really useful. Pop it in the comments and we'll try and ask. Okay, wow. So have you organised this yourself? No, so we have had an amazing team and it started on the policy. So the government and the deaf community, we've had all these different topics about AI and economics, and we're thinking about how to share this important information in a way that it will work for the community. Because we want to empower you all to feel motivated to campaign with us. It's exciting. It's a really exciting time. We're here for you all, and we're here with the resources to make life better in the future. We're also welcoming hearing professionals and about how they support deaf parents, for example. Talk to parents about their deaf children and what language they use, and how we can try to bridge the gap between hearing professionals and the deaf community. So really, we're aiming at a lot of different audiences and we have to try to make it fit for all of them. But ultimately, it's to inspire and empower people. I remember I saw a historical conference when Diana, do you know the Princess Diana, went many, many years ago now. Oh, yes. When was that? 1990, I think it was. That was a 100-year anniversary in Brighton, and Princess Diana came because she was our patriot of BDA, and everybody was amazed. It was such an iconic moment because at that time, I think they were talking about the deaf community feeling patronised and smaller, and I think that sort of helped people feel that they could come out of their shell and be proud of their language. And to think how far we've come now, yes, there are still risks and still threats, but to think about how much culture and heritage we have and to use that to continue our work is such an amazing difference. And so the audience in 1990, the people that went, do you think the target audience is the same, or do you think there were more before or less now? Oh, brilliant question. I don't know. I don't know how many were there. But how do you think in Brighton? So Emma has said again about the return on the investment. So will you tell us today or will you keep it quiet? No, so we'll keep it quiet. We are still reviewing the report and we have a second draft coming out. So we just need to polish up a few more things. And so we don't want to say it until the final document has been ready, which we'll launch at the conference. Oh, sorry, Emma. You'll have to wait. So Bethany's also said she would never change her son. Her son is deaf and he has changed the family for the better. And there's women who are worried about hearing parents who maybe feel vulnerable in the situation and they might feel they have to accept treatment. So we're going to talk about some of the personalities who are going to be part of the conference. You've got some big names coming. So you've got the WFD president, Joseph Murray. Why is he coming? So BDA are now members of the WFD and the EUD. So we will be there representing the UK when we go to the WFD. So we'll be representing BSL and ISL for Irish Sign Language. And we are the only UK members, so they're representing the BSL community and the ISL community there. So when I went to the WFD conference, it's 2 years ago already, I was just so inspired by their information. I felt empowered because their international level of influence with the United Nations, the United Health Organizations, the World Federation of Health is just amazing. And so I've learned a lot from that, and what we want to take forward. He is the president of WFD, but he has taken some research of his own into our culture, and he's been researching deaf gain and the importance of how we safeguard the language and the culture for the future. So that's why we've invited him. So you've also got the former CEO, Jeff McWhinney, coming along. What for? What's he going to be talking about? Yes, so he has made a massive influence in deaf politics at that time. So now, we give thanks to all of our former CEOs because they have brought us deaf space. It's so important, whether it's deaf clubs or the community around. We're aware that obviously the space is changing and it will probably change in the future. What might it look like? So we have to think about these deaf spaces. So also the host, the MC of the event. So how are you going to control him? So the conference will have 2 locations in Leeds. So one, Irvin will be coming, and Alison Wood. So they're both local to Leeds, and they'll be emceeing the conference. But in the evening, we have a gala, so that's on Friday night, to celebrate 135 years of the BDA. And so we'll have the 2 deaf twins there to MC. And they are influencers. I'm so excited for them to come along to the conference and to focus on the gala, really. So I'm super excited about that. That's brilliant. So exciting. So tell me more about the other speakers. So yes, I'm very, very excited. We have one person coming in to talk about the diversity in the deaf community, which is so important, and to think about our work. We have Erin, who's talking about 2050 and young deaf people, which they need to be aware of. And Joanna, who I've met and been talking to her, who has had discussions with Wes Streeting. So hold on. So about Joanna, she was in the news recently, right? What was that about? Yes. So she is deafblind, and she was talking about the different brains, and talking about the deaf brain and how important it is from that visual perspective. So her speech was so powerful to the Department of Health and Social Care. And so Wes came and it really impacted him. So we're trying to say we are here, we are contributing, and to show him the value. So she's going to come to the conference to say, yes, we are here. What do we need to continue doing? But also we need to do more. So going back to the early years topic, we have 2 BDA staff who will be coming. Gemma is a mother of a deaf child in the BDA. And so we've been delivering family signing at home because we want the government to offer this free sign language course. So we want deaf teachers, deaf professionals to go to family homes and to teach sign language, because the parents having to go to college, obviously later for development purposes they can do and do their level 1 and level 2. But before that, you have a deaf baby they need to think about. And so you need to have deaf role models around. So we've been working with the Abacus language teaching and assessing. And we're working in partnership with them, and they have connections all over the UK. So what it means is that if a deaf family was in Norwich, for example, we would look for a teacher and pair them up. So we've had 50 teachers go out to lots of different homes for a 6-week course and to get the results. And the families have said how worth it is to have that deaf person in the home, to have that role model. It's like a health visitor when you give birth. But if your baby's deaf, it's so important to have a deaf person in the home, because it's not just about teaching parents or grandparents or neighbours and brothers and sisters as well, and aunts and uncles. It's everybody all together, coming together, united. And so we've run that project in 10 years in Northern Ireland, and it's been so successful. So we've finally got funding for England as well. And it's really, really positive. So we're going to have Tamsin from Scotland, and she's going to be talking about their ethnicities, and it's so strong, and the culture that we've got. So hopefully we can learn from them, and we've got so many. Oh, it's going to be such an important conference. Let's talk about the price. I know we've talked a lot, and I'm just going to add one thing. People, if you are proud of deaf history, if you're interested in deaf history, Peter Brown is going to be there. Is he chairing? What's his role? So he works for City Lit, and he is extremely knowledgeable about deaf history. So when we think about deaf culture and the heritage, and he's like a tree, all of those roots that the deaf community sit in, to create this tree of deaf community and how we're going to move forward. But he's going to be there to support us to understand our heritage and to help us take that forward. So that will be linked to Harleen as well, and the impact that it's going to have on the deaf community and the culture, and bringing that together to make these deaf spaces so that we can learn. So yes, that's going to be really exciting. If there are any more comments or questions, you have 10 minutes left on Facebook, so get them in quickly. Now is your chance to ask, or you'll have to wait for the conference. So, talking about the price, for members, it's £140, and some people feel like it's a bit expensive, but it's a similar price to last year in Manchester. But altogether, the BDA are not making a profit on this event. We are actually making a loss, but the board understand that it's so important to share this information with the community. And our biggest cost is accessibility. So it's funding interpreters, international interpreters, and AV. So it's all of the studio equipment, the big screens, because we all need to be able to see well and have the captions. And we want this to be a really inclusive event. So the cost is inclusive of all of that. So we feel we don't want to increase the price, so we have reduced it. But today we're going to offer those who are watching, I will give you a discount code, BDA10 will give you 10% off the tickets. Or if you're not a member, you can become a member today. So what is that? It's BDA10, all capitals. So you can become a member of BDA today and get the discount code. So it's a win-win, really. I know it sounds expensive, but it includes lunch as well. And it's such an important topic. If you're coming for 2 days, so you're coming to Thursday and Friday, on the Thursday night, our main sponsor is Sign Wow. So they'll be giving out a free drinks reception as well. Hang on, she said free drinks reception. Yes, for the 2-day ticket holders. It's tempting. It's tempting. Come along. That's really good. So thank you to Sign Wow. Sign Wow also sponsor us at CDA, our Thrive Live show. So wow, big appreciation to them. So it's your choice really, isn't it? So 2-day ticket holders on a Thursday evening, you have a social, like a drinks reception, free drinks. And I think we've got some more comments. One person is saying home visits are so important so that families can be involved in the deaf child's life. We have another comment. Hopefully the BDA will invite Prince William to come along to support with sign language. Oh my goodness, I'd love him to come. He said he's been teaching his son sign language. Did you know that? Yeah, I mean, his mum was the patriot of BDA for so many years. It'd be lovely. So at the moment, we're having board discussions to think about who could become a new patriot. So maybe he could represent it. So yeah, quite a lot of the board are thinking about that now. So are you interested in who do you think the new patron should become? Prince Harry, maybe, might be interested. Bit controversial. Okay, so we've got 5 minutes left. Let's talk about the gala. So is there going to be any information about what's going on for that? It's going to be a very important night, right? And I went last year. It was a wonderful evening. Beautiful atmosphere, really, really enjoyable. So tell us about it. So really the whole conference is to celebrate our living heritage, our deaf culture. So we have 4 performers. There will be dancers, professional performers. Chris Fonseca will be coming along with Harry, who will be dancing with him. I'm not sure what they're going to be doing, but Chris is a dancer. So he'll be doing a performance and it will be linked to our deaf culture. We'll have poetry and we'll have a poetry winner this year and last year as well, actually. So they'll be performing a poem in BSL, which is such an important part of deaf culture. So we'll be thinking about what we can do in the future, and maybe we could do some poetry workshops, for example. And also Nadia will be coming, of course. So she'll be doing some visual storytelling linked to our past, our present, and our future. So obviously she's going to be amazing on the night. She's a great performer. Oh, I've forgotten the last person. Anyway, there's 4. Oh, maybe it's a comedian. Yes, thank you, that's it. It is. Gavin's coming along. So Gavin is coming with Adam, who's a local man. He doesn't live far from Leeds. So they're going to be giving us some comedy together, which will be great. So that is it. That is deaf culture. And we're proud to celebrate BDA's birthday, of course. And thinking about the deaf twins, the influencers, they'll be emceeing as well. So they'll give it a touch of glamour, I think. Oh, it sounds so wonderful. Oh, there'll be a meal as well. And a few surprises thrown in along the way. Okay. What do you think the surprises will be? Let's have a look. I'm just going to do one last check of the comments. Will you be involving somebody from the government, from number 10, to show our heritage? Yes. So Stephen will be there, who will be interviewing him and finding out what the government's thoughts are about BSL, about our language. And we've got another guest from Scotland coming on Friday. So they will hopefully open the conference talking about government policy, what they're doing. And knowing that in Scotland they are ahead of us with the language. So we want the UK government to learn from them and to hopefully develop a BSL plan. Brilliant. So let's talk about you now. We'll put the job at the BDA aside. It seems like a lot of planning, a lot of hard work. Your team have been wonderful coming together and planning this. Do you enjoy the conference yourself? I love it. It is my favourite part of the year. Last year in Manchester, I sat and I watched, and I just had an amazing feeling listening to these experts. And I took so much away from it, you know, resources and tools, and I led it in my work as well. And, you know, it wasn't that I went there to switch off, but I went there to take in the information rather than being sitting on a laptop and doing a lot of research. Like, I wanted to absorb everything they were talking about. So if somebody's at home now watching and they're not sure about if they want to go or not, and they're sort of umming and ahhing, what would be your advice? Absolutely. Come along. You don't want to miss out. You will learn from some amazing presenters. You will feel empowered, and you will be there to help make sure our language thrives. We've had some members tell us in 2023 that they are worried about the language dissipating. And we feel that's so important to represent the language of our members. And it's important that we establish the conference in a language that you can take home and you can take onto your works. It's not about me or individually. It's here. We are here for you and for your work as the community. So please do share BDA 10. It's a 10% discount code, or become a member of BDA and you'll get the 10% discount as well. We want people there. We want to fill the hall. It has been an absolute pleasure to welcome you here today, Rebecca, into our old hall. And we'll be celebrating 100 years soon enough. And you've had a 135-year anniversary coming up. So, wow. It's a great opportunity for the deaf community to come together. And I'm honoured to have you here today. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing the information as well. And I'm sure the local community here in Cambridgeshire and nationally as well, I'm sure, are so excited to go. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm so happy to talk about this topic. Thank you again. No problem. So that's it from us.